The anniversary gift was beautifully wrapped on our bed, a first-class ticket to Milan with his name on it. I had spent months planning this surprise, only to discover his own secret itinerary when his assistant, Mrs. Reynolds, called. "We need the Dubai presentation by tomorrow," she said. "Since your husband moved his business trip up a day." There was no Dubai presentation. There was no business trip. And according to the text I glimpsed on his phone, there was a woman named Cassandra waiting for him at the Plaza Hotel, the same hotel where we spent our wedding night 3 years ago. I didn't confront him when he kissed me goodbye with fabricated regret about missing our anniversary for work. Instead, I made a single phone call that would change everything. I stared at the ticket in my hands, the glossy paper catching the afternoon light streaming through our penthouse windows. 3 months of careful planning, coordinating with Michael's schedule, making sure he would have no excuses to miss our trip. Now it seemed he had created his own excuse, one that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with a woman from his past. The call from his assistant had been innocent enough. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm so sorry to bother you at home," she said, her voice chirping with efficiency. "Michael mentioned you might have the final numbers for the Dubai presentation, since he had to rush out early for his flight." "Dubai presentation?" I repeated, keeping my voice neutral despite the sudden tightness in my chest. "Yes, for the AL group meeting tomorrow," he said. He mentioned he moved his business trip up a day due to scheduling conflicts. The lie settled in my stomach like a stone. Michael had told me he would be flying to Dubai tonight for an emergency meeting with investors, apologizing profusely about missing our anniversary. I had pretended to be disappointed, while secretly delighted that my surprise Milan trip would be even more unexpected. After hanging up with his assistant, I checked Michael's laptop that he'd left open on his desk. The browser history revealed not a Dubai itinerary, but confirmation for a New York domestic flight departing this evening, a flight to nowhere near Dubai. I moved to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of the expensive Cabernet Michael had bought last week. It was the same wine we'd shared on our first date when he was still a struggling architect with dreams bigger than his bank account. I had fallen for his passion, his vision, his seeming authenticity. I remembered how he'd looked at me with wonder when I mentioned my job managing portfolios for Fletcher Investment Group. "You must be incredibly smart," he said, with no hint of intimidation or competitiveness in his voice. I had found that refreshing. Most men I dated seemed threatened by my success. 3 years later, here we were. I had helped him make connections with my wealthy clients, introduced him to people who could advance his career. I had been his biggest champion, never once resenting that my annual bonus could pay his entire year's salary. Money didn't matter. We were partners, or so I thought. I picked up my phone, scrolling through our text messages. Everything seemed normal this morning. He'd sent, "Early meeting before my flight. Miss you already. Hate that work is stealing our anniversary." What a performance. My fingers moved to his email app that he'd logged into on my tablet months ago and never signed out of. There was a hotel confirmation at the Plaza, not a business hotel, but the Plaza, our wedding night hotel. The audacity burned through my chest. Next came a name in his recent emails, Cassandra Winters. I didn't have to search long to put the pieces together. Cassandra Winters, his former fiancée. Their relationship had ended a year before we met. According to the emails, she was now divorced and had been thinking about him a lot lately. The emails had started innocently enough 3 months ago, then progressed to reminiscing, then to meeting for coffee, and then to I've never stopped wondering what if. I set down my wine glass hard enough that the stem nearly snapped. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to think like the strategist I was at work. Emotional reactions never yielded optimal outcomes. Information and timing were everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael, "Boarding soon. We'll call when I land in Dubai." Another lie delivered so smoothly I almost admired the craftsmanship. Almost. I texted back, "Safe travels. Love you," complete with a heart emoji. Why not? I could perform. Our wedding photos stared at me from the mantel, Michael in his tailored suit, me in a gown that cost more than his car at the time. His mother had whispered during the reception, loud enough for me to hear, "She's his meal ticket." I had defended him, insisting he was talented and would make his own way. Now I wondered if she'd seen something I'd missed. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was my scheduled hair appointment. I had arranged an in-home stylist as part of my preparation for surprising Michael with the Milan ticket tomorrow morning. I almost cancelled, then decided against it. The appointment would give me time to think. As the stylist worked, I scrolled through my contacts, stopping at one name, Vanessa Keller, my college roommate, who now ran an elite private investigation firm catering to wealthy clients concerned about infidelity or corporate espionage. We hadn't spoken in months, but I knew she'd take my call. Going somewhere special? The stylist asked, noticing the Milan tickets on the coffee table. I am, I said, forcing a smile. Plans change. After she left, I placed the Milan tickets in an envelope, then picked up my phone and dialed Vanessa's number. Emma Reynolds, she answered. Instead of hello, let me guess, husband or business partner? Husband, I replied. And I need information before he returns from his trip, not after. The famous Michael, her tone suggested she'd always had reservations about him. He's flying to New York tonight, not Dubai like he told me. Meeting an ex named Cassandra Winters at the plaza. I need to know everything, who else is there, what they talk about, and especially what he tells her about me. Surveillance package, Vanessa said, all business now. I've got people near the plaza. This is pretty standard. Nothing about this is standard, I replied. I want his financial movements to any accounts I don't know about. Any large transfers recently? There was a slight pause. That's escalation beyond standard marital surveillance. You sure you want to go there? I looked again at our wedding photo, at my trusting smile. I'm sure. And Vanessa, I don't just want information. I want options. Options, she repeated carefully. That can be arranged. Anything else? Yes, I said, making a decision that surprised even me. Book me on the first flight to Dubai tomorrow morning. Dubai? I thought he was lying about going there. He is, I confirmed. But I'm not. I have clients there who've been asking me to visit for months. Perfect time for a business trip of my own, don't you think? After hanging up, I walked to our bedroom and began packing a suitcase, not for the romantic Milan getaway I'd planned, but for a business trip that would set in motion everything that followed. Michael had taught me something valuable today. Sometimes the most important moves are the ones your opponent never sees coming. 2 days after Michael's departure, I stood in my office on the 47th floor of the Fletcher Investment Building, staring out at the Manhattan skyline while my assistant reviewed my schedule. The wall of glass separating me from the city's bustling energy felt symbolic of my current state, seeing everything clearly while remaining untouched by the chaos. Your 11 a.m. with Berkshire Capital was moved to 1 p.m., said Tanya, her stylus tapping efficiently against her tablet. And Sheikh Kad's office called again about the portfolio restructuring. Tell Sheikh Ahmed I'll call him personally this afternoon, I replied, turning from the window. My office, all sleek lines and minimalist furniture, had been featured in a business magazine last year as an example of power design. The article had mentioned my management of over $4 billion in assets but somehow forgot to include that I was married. Michael had been annoyed about that. Now I understood why it didn't fit his narrative. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, available to meet. Got everything you asked for. I told Tanya to clear my schedule until the Berkshire meeting. I have a personal matter to attend to. 30 minutes later, I sat across from Vanessa in a private room at an exclusive members-only club where financial titans conducted business away from prying eyes. She slid a leather portfolio across the table. You're not going to like what's in here, she warned, her expression grim. We'd been friends long enough that she didn't need to soften the blow. The first photos were exactly what I'd expected, Michael and Cassandra entering the plaza, dining at the hotel restaurant, his hand lingering on her lower back as they walked to the elevator. Standard infidelity documentation. It was the next section that made my stomach clench. He's been systematically diminishing your role in his success, Vanessa explained, pointing to transcripts from their dinner conversation. According to what he told her, he's the primary breadwinner and you work in finance but nothing significant. I scanned the transcript, feeling strangely detached as I read Michael's fabricated reality. Emma's job keeps her busy, but I'm glad my success has given her the freedom to work fewer hours. The Reynolds partnership offer came because of my Westlake design, not through any connections. There's more, Vanessa continued. Cassandra Winters isn't just any ex-girlfriend. Her family owns Reynolds Architectural Partners. The pieces suddenly clicked into place, Michael's unexpected partnership offer 6 months ago, his insistence on keeping our finances mostly separate despite my higher income, his reluctance to have me attend his firm's functions. He'd been playing a long game. And there's this, Vanessa said, turning to the financial section. He's been moving money from your joint account into a separate one for the past 4 months. Small amounts, nothing you'd notice without looking specifically. I studied the numbers, my trained eye immediately spotting the pattern. He's building a safety net or an exit strategy, Vanessa suggested. Has he slept with her? I asked, surprised by how little I cared about the answer. Not yet, according to our surveillance. Looks like he's rebuilding the relationship first. Vanessa paused. What I find more concerning is this. She pointed to notes from a breakfast meeting Michael had attended that morning with Cassandra's father, Gregory Winters. They're positioning him to be announced as future COO at next week's gala. I sat back, processing this information. A gala I wasn't invited to, despite being his wife. According to our sources, he told them you'd be in Europe on business. I laughed dryly. At least he got the continent right. My phone rang, my direct line that only select clients had access to. Sheikh Kad's name flashed on the screen. I need to take this, I told Vanessa, accepting the call. Sheikh Ahmad, what a pleasure. His rich accented voice came through clearly. Mrs. Reynolds, I apologize for the urgency, but we have a situation with the Almarai investment that requires your immediate attention. The board is meeting tomorrow in Dubai. I glanced at Vanessa, a plan forming rapidly in my mind. I can be there. Have your office send the details to my assistant. After ending the call, I turned to Vanessa. I need one more thing, a complete transformation before I leave for Dubai tonight. Transformation, she raised an eyebrow. Hair, wardrobe, everything. I've been hiding in Michael's shadow, dressing conservatively to not outshine him at functions. That ends today. Hours later, I barely recognized myself in the mirror at Vanessa's recommended salon. My usual subtly highlighted brown hair was now a rich, striking auburn, cut in a sophisticated style that framed my face perfectly. The stylist had enhanced my features with techniques that made me look both powerful and feminine. The personal shopper delivered everything to your apartment, Vanessa confirmed, watching my reaction. Designer pieces that scream success without trying too hard. Perfect, I said, touching my new hair. This wasn't just about looking different for revenge. This was about becoming the version of myself I'd been suppressing to protect Michael's ego. Back at my apartment, I found an array of designer clothing waiting, pieces from Tom Ford, Armani, and Brunello Cucinelli that projected authority and wealth without being ostentatious. While packing for Dubai, I called my attorney, Patricia. I need you to implement the asset protection plan we discussed last year, I said, referring to the contingency measures I'd put in place after noticing some concerning patterns in Michael's behavior. The full protocol? She asked, her tone professional but concerned. Just phase 1 for now. Make it look like routine security measures. Nothing that would raise alarms, but I want to be ready to move to phase 2 immediately if necessary. Consider it done. Should I be expecting a divorce filing soon? She asked. Let's wait and see, I replied, though we both knew where this was heading. As I zipped my suitcase closed, my phone chimed with an alert from the banking app. Michael had attempted to access our joint investment account but had been temporarily blocked by the security measures I just implemented. Within seconds, my phone rang with his call. I let it go to voicemail. His text followed immediately, Emma, there's some problem with our accounts. Can you call the bank? Love you. So casual, so normal, as if he hadn't spent the previous night with another woman, planning a future that didn't include me. I texted back, in meetings all day. Banking security updates happening this week. Normal procedure. Will resolve itself by tomorrow. Love you too. Just as I was about to leave for the airport, Vanessa sent one final image, Michael and Cassandra entering the Plaza Suite, the exact suite where Michael and I had spent our wedding night. I felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak, but a cold, clear certainty. I'd made him. I'd connected him with the clients who recognized his talent. I'd supported his dreams when no one else believed in him. And I could unmake him just as easily. As my car pulled away toward the airport, I sent instructions to my assistant, find everything we have on Reynolds Architectural Partners and book me on a return flight that will get me to New York in time for their gala next week. Dubai wasn't just a business emergency anymore. It was the first move in a game Michael didn't even know we were playing. The Dubai skyline glittered like a crown of jewels against the night sky as my driver navigated through the city's wide boulevards. After 16 hours of travel, most people would head straight to their hotel room to collapse. Instead, I was reviewing financial projections on my tablet, preparing for tomorrow's emergency meeting with Sheikh Ahmad's investment board. Mrs. Reynolds, we have arrived, the driver announced as we pulled up to the Burj Al Arab, not just any luxury hotel, but an iconic statement, a billionaire's preferred accommodation. The suite Sheikh Ahmad had arranged was larger than my first apartment. A handwritten note accompanied a basket of exotic fruits and a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne, respecting local customs while maintaining luxury. Looking forward to our meeting. Your reputation precedes you, it read. I smiled. My reputation, not my husband's connections or my firm's legacy. After a quick shower and change into a power suit from my new wardrobe, I reviewed the Almarai portfolio once more. The Saudi dairy conglomerate was facing a liquidity crisis that threatened a cascade of problems across multiple industries. Sheikh Ahmad's family had significant holdings that could be impacted. This wasn't just about saving one company, it was about preventing market instability throughout the region. By morning, I had devised 3 potential solutions, each with different risk profiles and returns. This was the work I excelled at, finding paths through financial chaos that others couldn't see. The boardroom at Sheikh Ahmad's private office complex overlooked the Persian Gulf. Its massive windows created the illusion that we were floating above the water. 8 men in traditional dress sat around the table, their expressions grave. I was the only woman present. Sheikh Ahmad stood as I entered, extending his hand in greeting. In his early 40s, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone born into power but intelligent enough to maintain it. Mrs. Reynolds, thank you for coming on such short notice. We find ourselves in a delicate situation, he said. Delicate situations are my specialty, I replied, setting my portfolio on the table. For the next 2 hours, I walked them through the Almarai situation, breaking down complex financial instruments into clear strategic choices. When I presented my recommended solution, a structured debt conversion coupled with a targeted acquisition of their distribution network, the room fell silent. This is quite innovative, said one older board member, clearly surprised. It's aggressive, added another. But if it works, it will work, I stated simply, not arrogance but certainty based on analysis. Sheikh Ahmad leaned forward. What do you need to implement this? Full authorization by tomorrow. The market waits for no one, not even royalty, I replied. This was a calculated risk, showing respect while asserting expertise. A slight smile touched his lips. You Americans always so direct, he said, turning to his board. Mrs. Reynolds has my confidence. Prepare the authorizations by this afternoon. By afternoon, I was executing the first phase of the plan, making calls from Sheikh Ahmad's office to financial institutions across 3 continents. The markets responded immediately. By the time we broke for an early dinner, Almarai stock had stabilized and begun to climb. You've accomplished in hours what our advisors said would take weeks, Sheikh Ahmad remarked as we dined on a terrace overlooking the city. The setting was professional but undeniably glamorous. Fletcher Investment Group is fortunate to have you, he said. I believe it's mutual, I replied, accepting a cup of Arabic coffee from an attendant. And your husband, is he also in finance? The question seemed casual, but his eyes were assessing. Architecture, I answered. He works with Reynolds Architectural Partners. Recognition flickered across his face. Reynolds, as I know them, they submitted a proposal for our Sadaf Tower project. I kept my expression neutral despite the surprise. I wasn't aware they were bidding on international projects. Not very successfully, he said with a slight shrug. The preliminary designs were uninspired. We're likely going with a Japanese firm instead. A server arrived with dessert, giving me a moment to process this information. Michael had never mentioned a Dubai project, especially not one large enough to attract Sheikh Ahmad's attention. Perhaps this is improper, Sheikh Ahmad continued after the server departed, but I find business discussions more productive when they're honest. Your husband's firm, there was a man named Reynolds who presented to us. He brought a younger architect who did all the talking, dark hair, very confident. Michael, I confirmed, my mind racing. Yes, Michael Reynolds. Your husband takes your name? Sheikh Ahmad's eyebrows rose slightly. I nearly choked on my coffee but recovered with a calm smile. No, his surname is Bennett, Michael Bennett. Sheikh Ahmad's expression shifted. How interesting. He was introduced as Reynolds. A partnership position, I assumed. A misunderstanding, perhaps, I offered, though we both knew it wasn't. The conversation moved to other topics, but my thoughts remained on this revelation. Michael had presented himself as a Reynolds, not just working for the firm but claiming the family name. The deception went deeper than I'd imagined. After dinner, Sheikh Ahmad proposed we continue discussions the following day. Tonight, we celebrate the beginning of what I hope will be a productive relationship. My staff has arranged for you to attend a reception at the Royal Pavilion. The reception was clearly designed to impress international business partners. Government ministers mingled with global finance leaders under crystal chandeliers. I moved through the crowd with practiced ease, networking and establishing connections that would benefit my clients for years to come. Mrs. Reynolds, a voice called from behind me. I turned to find an older American man extending his hand. Walter Jensen, Capital Partners International. I believe we met at the London Economic Forum last year. Of course, Mr. Jensen. Your presentation on emerging markets was insightful, I said. I'm surprised to see you here. I just had drinks with Gregory Winters in New York yesterday, and he mentioned the big announcement coming for your husband at next week's gala, he said, leaning closer. Reynolds hasn't had new blood in leadership for a generation. Your husband must be quite impressive to be tapped as future CEO. I maintained my composure, though my pulse quickened. News travels fast. The architecture world is small. Before I could respond, Sheikh Ahmad appeared at my side. Mrs. Reynolds, there's someone you must meet. He nodded politely to Jensen before guiding me away. You seemed uncomfortable, he observed once we were out of earshot. Not uncomfortable, just gathering information, I said. He smiled appreciatively. A woman after my own heart. Now let me introduce you to the Minister of Development. He's quite interested in our Almarai solution. The evening continued successfully, with several potential clients requesting meetings. By the time I returned to my hotel, it was past midnight, but my mind was too active for sleep. I opened my laptop to find an urgent message from Vanessa with new surveillance photos, Michael and Gregory Winters at dinner, reviewing documents labeled co-transition plan. My phone rang, Michael's third attempt to reach me today. This time, I answered. Emma, finally, he said, relief evident in his voice. I've been trying to reach you all day. Is everything okay with the accounts? Everything's fine, I replied calmly. Just a security update. How's Dubai? He asked without hesitation. Hot, he said. The meetings are going well, though should wrap up by tomorrow. Wonderful, I replied, staring at the nighttime Dubai skyline from my window. Any interesting developments? Nothing worth boring you with. Just business, he paused. I miss you. I miss you too, I lied smoothly. Get some rest. It must be late there. Time zones, he chuckled. It's actually morning here. Listen, I should go. Meeting starting soon. Love you. Love you too, I replied before hanging up. I pulled up my email and found a message from Sheikh Ahmad sent just minutes ago. Mrs. Reynolds, your work today was exceptional. I've decided to form a special advisory committee for the Dubai-New York International Center project. Given your unique perspective on both markets, I'd be honored if you would join us. The first meeting is in New York next week. My staff will send details. I checked the date. It coincided perfectly with the Reynolds Gala. Another email arrived, this one from my bank, alerting me to Michael's second attempt to access our frozen assets. This time, he tried to transfer a significant sum to an account I didn't recognize. I made two quick decisions. First, I accepted Sheikh Ahmad's committee invitation. Second, I forwarded the bank alert to my attorney with instructions to prepare for Phase 2 of our asset protection plan. The game was accelerating. Michael was making his moves, unaware that I was 3 steps ahead. By the time he realized we were playing, checkmate would already be inevitable. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the city lights shimmer against the desert night. In finance, timing is everything, and the time for my return to New York had just been perfectly arranged. The Manhattan skyline materialized through wisps of evening fog as my plane descended toward JFK. I checked my appearance in the compact mirror, the striking auburn hair, the designer outfit, the confident posture of a woman who managed billions, not the supportive wife Michael thought he'd left behind. Mrs. Reynolds, Sheikh Khad's car is waiting, the flight attendant informed me as we taxied to the gate. Perfect timing, I said. The Reynolds Architectural Partners Gala had already begun at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a venue chosen to impress international clients with old-world grandeur. By now, Michael would be there, standing by Cassandra's side, believing I was still in our apartment waiting for his return from his Dubai trip tomorrow. The sleek black Mercedes provided by Sheikh Ahmad glided through Manhattan traffic with diplomatic efficiency. I reviewed the dossier Vanessa had sent earlier, photos of Michael greeting guests at the gala, standing close to Cassandra, both laughing with her father, a family portrait in progress. Mrs. Reynolds, Sheikh Ahmad greeted me as I entered the car. "You look magnificent. The Americans won't know what hit them." "That's the plan," I replied, accepting the glass of sparkling water his assistant offered. "Your intelligence on Reynolds Architectural was quite valuable," he said. "My team discovered their Dubai proposal was mostly copied from another firm's previous work. Most disappointing. I processed this new information carefully. I'm glad I could help prevent a poor investment." The car stopped at the museum's entrance, where photographers captured images of arriving guests. Sheikh Ahmad exited first, drawing immediate attention in his immaculate traditional attire, surrounded by his entourage. I stepped out next, and the cameras immediately shifted to capture the striking woman accompanying Dubai royalty. We paused briefly for photos, a strategic move that ensured our entrance would be noticed by everyone inside, including Michael. The gala was in full swing in the Temple of Dendera. The ancient Egyptian monument was dramatically lit, with string musicians playing softly in the background. 300 of New York's elite architectural and business leaders mingled among cocktail tables scattered throughout the space. I spotted Michael immediately, standing near the central display with Cassandra and her father, gesturing animatedly as he explained something to potential clients. He looked confident, successful, completely in his element, and completely unaware of what was about to happen. "Shall we circulate?" Sheikh Ahmad suggested, offering his arm in a courtly gesture. We moved through the crowd, stopping frequently as people approached to greet us. Each introduction expanded my network while simultaneously building anticipation for the inevitable moment when Michael would notice me. It happened during a conversation with the head of the Architectural Society. Sheikh Ahmad was describing our emergency financial restructuring in Dubai when I felt it, the weight of a shocked stare from across the room. I turned slowly, making eye contact with Michael. Even from 30 feet away, I could see the blood drain from his face. He stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to his lips, as if he'd seen a ghost. "Excuse me," I said to my companions. "I see my husband. I should say hello." I approached Michael with measured steps, aware that nearby conversations were quieting as people noticed the unfolding drama. Cassandra noticed his distress and followed his gaze to me, confusion evident on her face. "Mel," I said warmly, leaning in to kiss his cheek. "What a lovely surprise." "Emma," he managed, his voice strangled. "How are you?" Sheikh Ahmad invited me to join his International Advisory Committee, I explained, as if this were the most normal situation in the world. "We've been working together in Dubai. The real Dubai, not the imaginary one you've been visiting." Cassandra looked between us, clearly trying to piece together the puzzle. "Michael, who is this?" she asked. "This is Emma," he struggled, visibly sweating now. "My wife," her eyes widened. "Wife? But you said Emma works in finance." "I certainly did," I agreed pleasantly, though perhaps not accurately. "Cassandra, lovely to meet you. Michael has told me absolutely nothing about you." Gregory Winters approached, sensing a situation requiring damage control. "Michael, is everything all right?" he asked. "Mr. Winters," I greeted him. "We met briefly in Dubai. You might not remember. I'm Emma Reynolds, Michael's wife." Recognition dawned on his face. "You're the investment manager Sheikh Ahmad mentioned. Chief investment strategist at Fletcher Investment Group." I confirmed, and apparently also Michael's dirty little secret. The awkward silence that followed was broken by the sound of a glass being tapped for attention. All heads turned toward the small stage where a woman was preparing to make an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. Mr. Winters would like to make a special announcement." Gregory Winters looked panicked, caught between his planned announcement and the unfolding disaster before him. "By all means," I encouraged. "Don't let family drama interfere with business." He hurried away, leaving Michael, Cassandra, and me in our uncomfortable triangle. "Emma, we need to talk," Michael whispered urgently. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I said. "Because it looks like you've been lying to me about going to Dubai while actually spending time with your ex-fiancé and plotting to become CEO of her family's company." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "Ex-fiancé? Michael told me you were his assistant who sometimes helps with his finances." "That's fascinating," I turned to Michael, "considering I paid for your graduate degree." Before Michael could respond, Sheikh Ahmad appeared at my side. Mrs. Reynolds, I apologize for interrupting, but there's been a development with the International Center project. What kind of development? Michael asked automatically, professional interest momentarily overriding his personal crisis. Michael Bennett, I introduced. This is Sheikh Ahmad Ali Sol. Bennett? Sheikh Ahmad said, confusion evident in his voice. I believed you were Michael Reynolds. I'm a partner at Reynolds, Michael replied, his voice trembling. There must be some confusion. Interesting, Sheikh Ahmad interrupted. In any case, I need to speak with the actual leadership of Reynolds Architectural before Mr. Winters makes his announcement. He strode purposefully toward the stage where Gregory Winters was just stepping up to the microphone. A moment later, Winters' expression changed as Sheikh Ahmad whispered something in his ear. He nodded sharply and stepped back from the microphone. Instead, Sheikh Ahmad took his place. The crowd quieted immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this unconventional interruption. However, before any announcements about the future of Reynolds Architectural Partners are made, I must inform you that my investment group has decided to award the Dubai-New York International Center project to Tanaka Design Associates rather than Reynolds. A collective gasp rippled through the room. This decision was made after careful review of all proposals and due diligence regarding the authentic work and leadership integrity of each firm, Sheikh Ahmad continued. His gaze found Michael in the crowd, then shifted meaningfully to me, before he stepped down from the microphone. The carefully orchestrated evening had just imploded spectacularly, and the night was far from over. The gala erupted into chaos, whispers and shocked expressions filling the room following Sheikh Ahmad's announcement. Gregory Winters rushed back to the microphone, attempting damage control with forced confidence. Thank you, Sheikh Ahmad, for that unexpected update. Let's continue with our planned program and celebrate Reynolds Architectural Partners' achievements this year. But the damage was done. Investors clustered in concerned groups, and several began discreetly heading for the exits. Gregory Winters stormed directly toward us, his face flushed with barely contained fury. Conference room. Now, he hissed at Michael, then glanced at Cassandra and me. All of you. I caught Sheikh Ahmad's eye across the room. He gave me a subtle nod, communicating that this had been precisely the opening we planned. Michael placed his hand on my elbow, but I shifted away from his touch. Emma, please, he whispered desperately as we followed Gregory through the museum's back corridors. Let me explain before everything falls apart. I believe that ship has sailed, I replied calmly. Or should I say, that plane has already landed in Dubai. The conference room was a stark contrast to the glamorous gala, all business with its long table and leather chairs. Gregory Winters closed the door firmly behind us. What the hell is going on? He demanded, glaring at Michael. Who exactly is this woman, and why did Sheikh Ahmad just publicly humiliate our firm? This is my wife, Emma, Michael said, loosening his tie and visibly struggling to maintain composure. There's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I interrupted, placing my clutch on the table. Let me clarify things, Mr. Winters. I'm Emma Reynolds, Chief Investment Strategist at Fletcher Investment Group. I manage over $4 billion in assets for clients, including Sheikh Ahmad. And apparently, you also claimed I didn't exist. Gregory's eyes widened as the pieces connected. You're the financial advisor Sheikh Ahmad mentioned, the one who revealed problems with our Dubai proposal. I merely provided accurate information about your firm's business practices. The decision was his. What accurate information? Gregory demanded, turning to Michael. What did she tell him? Michael reached for a water glass, his hand visibly shaking. Emma, this isn't necessary. We can discuss our personal issues privately. This stopped being just personal when you used my connections to advance your career while systematically lying about me to your colleagues, I countered. Did you really think I wouldn't discover that you've been presenting yourself as Michael Reynolds? Gregory slammed his palm on the table. You've been using our family name without authorization. Only in certain international meetings, Michael admitted, his facade crumbling. It carried more weight with foreign investors. And telling everyone I was your assistant rather than your wife, who financially supported you through the early years of your career, was that also a strategic business decision? Cassandra stood abruptly. You told me she was just someone you hired to help with paperwork, she said, her voice trembling with anger and humiliation. You said there hadn't been anyone serious since me. Cass, please, Michael pleaded. It's complicated. No, Michael, I interjected. It's actually quite simple. You've been living two separate lives, one as my husband, pretending to be a hardworking architect building his career honestly, and another as the heir apparent to Reynolds, where you diminish my existence because it doesn't fit your narrative of success. The door opened, and Sheikh Ahmed entered with his chief counsel. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe we need to address some concerning information that has come to light. Gregory straightened his posture instantly, shifting to damage control mode. Sheikh Ahmed, I assure you that whatever misunderstandings have occurred, Reynolds Architectural Partners maintains the highest standards of integrity. Then you'll want to explain these, Sheikh Ahmed replied as his counsel placed a folder on the table. Our team discovered that portions of your Dubai proposal were copied directly from Tanaka's award-winning Singapore project. Gregory opened the folder, the color draining from his face as he examined the contents. This is impossible. We have stringent review processes. I oversaw that proposal, Michael admitted quietly. We were under deadline pressure. We borrowed some concepts. Borrowed? Gregory exploded. You plagiarized our main competitor and put the Reynolds name on it. I can fix this, Michael insisted desperately. Sheikh Ahmed, if you'll allow us to submit a revised proposal. This isn't about one proposal, Sheikh Ahmed interrupted. It's about trust. Mrs. Reynolds has demonstrated impeccable integrity in our dealings. The contrast with what we've discovered about Reynolds' business practices is illuminating. Mrs. Reynolds has her own agenda here, Michael countered, desperation making him reckless. She's clearly trying to sabotage my career because of personal issues. I laughed softly. Michael, if I wanted to sabotage your career, I wouldn't have waited until you did it yourself. I would have simply stopped paying our rent 4 years ago when you were still an unknown architect with student debt. Cassandra turned to her father. Did you know about any of this? That he was married? That he was misrepresenting himself? Gregory shook his head, his expression grim. The background check showed no marriage records under Michael Bennett. Now I understand why, because we're registered under Reynolds. I explained my grandmother left me a substantial inheritance with the condition that her name continue, I said. Michael was quite happy to take my name when it came with a down payment for our apartment. Michael finally snapped. What was I supposed to do, stand in your shadow forever? Do you have any idea how it feels to be known as Emma Reynolds' husband at every industry event? To have people assume I got every commission because of your connections? So instead, I erased you entirely and found someone new to help advance my career. Cassandra flinched at this. I didn't know, Emma. He told me. I know, I assured her. You're as much a victim of his manipulations as I am. Michael slammed his fist on the table. This is ridiculous. Yes, I made some mistakes, but everything I've done was to build something of my own. Is that so wrong? The mistakes weren't the problem, Michael, I said, rising from my chair. It was the lies, not just to me, but to everyone in this room, to your clients, to yourself. I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the table before him. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow. My attorney will contact you. You can't do this, Michael protested, panic rising in his voice. Our accounts are already separated. I finished that for you, I said. The temporary freeze was to prevent you from transferring more funds to your secret account. Quite clever, using your mother's maiden name, but not clever enough. Gregory Winters cleared his throat. Michael, in light of these revelations, I think it's best if you clear out your office tomorrow. Our partnership agreement has a moral conduct clause that clearly applies here. Michael's face contorted in disbelief. You're firing me after everything I've done for the firm? I brought in the Westlake project. I secured the Mal Lister account. Actually, I interjected, those were my client connections you apparently claimed as your own. Sheikh Ahmed watched this exchange with interest before turning to me. Mrs. Reynolds, while I regret the personal difficulties you're experiencing, I believe the committee would benefit greatly from your continued participation. I'd be honored. I'd be happy to, I replied. And Mr. Winters, Sheikh Ahmed continued, while the International Center contract is settled, I'd be interested in discussing other potential collaborations with Reynolds under new leadership, of course. Gregory's expression shifted from despair to cautious hope. New leadership, someone with genuine talent and integrity, Sheikh Ahmed elaborated, glancing meaningfully at me. Gregory followed his gaze. Mrs. Reynolds, would you consider joining our board? We clearly need your financial expertise and ethical oversight. Michael stared in disbelief as the full impact of his collapse washed over him. This can't be happening. I gathered my clutch, preparing to leave. Sheikh Ahmed, shall we return to the gala? I believe there are several people you wanted me to meet. As we reached the door, I turned back one last time. Michael, I'll have my things moved out by tomorrow evening. You can keep the apartment. I've outgrown it anyway. Walking back into the gala alongside Sheikh Ahmed, I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with a message from my assistant. Tokyo called again about the Nakora Hotel project. They insist on speaking only with you, not your husband. I smiled. Sometimes, endings are really beginnings in disguise. The next morning, I sat in my office reviewing divorce papers when my attorney called. Emma, we've discovered something interesting. Michael attempted another large transfer last night, not from your joint accounts, those are secure, but from a Reynolds corporate account to his personal offshore one. So he's moved from deceiving me to embezzlement. Forward everything to Gregory Winters, I said. I suspect they'll want to handle this internally first. After hanging up, I walked to my window, watching the city below. People rushed to their destinations, unaware that their entire lives could transform in an instant. My assistant knocked gently. Mrs. Reynolds, your 9 a.m. is here. Send them in, I replied, turning from the window. The door opened, and a young woman entered. Cassandra Winters. She looked different from the gala, less polished, more authentic. Thank you for seeing me, she said. I wanted to apologize and to ask for your advice. My father wants me to take a more active role in the company, but I've always been intimidated by the finance side. I was hoping maybe you could recommend some resources or a mentor. I studied her for a moment, seeing not a rival, but a reflection of my younger self, talented but underestimated. I have an opening on my team for an architectural investment specialist, I offered. It's demanding, but you'd learn more in 6 months than in years of traditional mentoring. Her eyes widened with surprise and hope. You'd do that? After everything? We all deserve the chance to build our own legacy, I replied, extending my hand. Just not at someone else's expense. As Cassandra left, my phone rang again with the Tokyo call. This time, I answered. Mrs. Reynolds, there's a call for you from Tokyo. They said it's about that impossible hotel project no one could finance. They're asking specifically for you, not your soon-to-be ex-husband. I smiled. Put them through. I have some ideas they might find interesting.